Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So I just happened to stumble upon this video, bankruptcy journey at 22. So file bankruptcy with me as a 22-year-old in $91,300 worth of debt. And she looks really happy. I'll be honest. I feel like there's no stigma in bankruptcy these days. And even all the greats have declared bankruptcy. Dave Ramsey, Walt Disney, Sam Walton. But man, she just looks really happy. So this is what we're gonna do. We're just gonna see what's up, watch her video, and then go ahead and pay off debt without declaring bankruptcy. And again, no shade to her. You got to do what you got to do, right? $91,300 worth of debt at 22 years old. I don't know how I would have been able to handle that at that age, but let's go ahead and watch.
I am in $91,300 worth of debt, and I am filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy today. I've had such a bad financial burden the last couple years, so after meeting with an attorney and doing lots of research, I realized that filing bankruptcy really isn't as bad as it's made out to be, and it was truly going to be my best bet. I decided to file Chapter 7, and truthfully, my consumer debt really is not that bad. A lot of people have it a lot worse financially, but for me, $91,000 was just too much. It was uncomfortable, and I just wanted to get a fresh start. I moved to Texas directly after high school, and I made a lot of very irresponsible decisions financially and really dug myself into a big hole of debt. I decided, let's go ahead and file bankruptcy. Let's give myself a clean slate. That way I can stop stressing and I can actually do better. Okay, just to give you a little breakdown of the debt that I do have that totals up to the $91,300. I owe about $51,000 on the vehicle that I have. We did try selling that, trading it in, all that good stuff, but I have way too much negative equity to come out on top. I bought a motorcycle back in 2022. Thought that was a great idea. I owe $5,000 still on that. Same thing. Tried selling it, not able to get what we owe out of it. I do own a camper, and I owe about $13,400 on that. However, I live out of that camper because I can't afford a house. So I am keeping that since I do live in it. I have $2,200 worth of medical bills that I had no idea were in collections. And then I have $12,000 worth of student loans. However, those do not get forgiven with bankruptcy, so I will still continue that payment. And then I have about $7,700 worth of credit card debt, all coming into a grand total of $91,300. So after meeting with an attorney, she decided filing Chapter 7 is going to be my best bet. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. Since I was referred to her from somebody that is currently filing bankruptcy with her, she did cut me a discount. So my bankruptcy is only going to cost me about $1,100. So I've already paid all of those fees to her. To do a free consultation with her. And then after I decided to go ahead and file, I paid a deposit and I received a workbook. I went ahead and filled that workbook out and everything. And it just pretty much, it needed all my information, my income, all my belongings and stuff like that I have. And then I listed all of my creditors as well. So thankfully you are able to actually pick and choose what you do file on whenever it comes to bankruptcies. I did decide to surrender the truck, and then I am surrendering the motorcycle as well. I am keeping my camper, and I will have to keep my student loans, but otherwise everything's gonna be wiped clean. So we're gonna go ahead and go in, we're gonna sign a little bit of paperwork, get everything finalized so she can actually file that. So let's go.
It's almost like a bankruptcy vlog, right? And I don't know if you heard that 50% of her debt was that one truck, $50,000, right? It says right here, half of your debt being your car is crazy. 51,000 on a vehicle at 22 is insane. Those are luxuries we save for when we can afford them, not have to make us go into debt. Oh man. And then this guy right here, filing bankruptcy is actually pretty bad. Is actually pretty bad. No shade to her, but that's what he's saying. All right, well, oh man, I don't even know what to think anymore. Like, is it bad? Is it not bad? If you take a look at the history of this country, this is what I learned taking a bankruptcy course, is that bankruptcy was an alternative to debtor's prison, right? Like debtor's prison, indentured servitude. So it's like if you make bad decisions, well, I don't want to say bad decisions, but if you're unable to pay your debts, you need like a release valve, and that's the whole point of bankruptcy, right? So ideally, you don't want to declare bankruptcy just because, the whole economy is just based on debt anyways. So if you don't have access to the debt system, then your life is just going to be much harder, right? But I do agree with Dave Ramsey that, most people shouldn't borrow money because it just allows you to make really bad choices. And I don't even know what person would allow, you know, what creditor would lend, someone $50,000, and I'm assuming that they don't make that much income, right? Maybe, I don't know. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Velocity banking. So it's just a repeat of the last situation. And I'm kind of thinking of doing two things. Number one, starting a new channel and just kind of marketing this to rich people, doctors, lawyers, I don't know, maybe real estate investors, people with lots of debt, but people who make good money. And then maybe I can make some good money off of that. And then number two, just keep marketing this as a cult too. Like, join my cult, join my cult. No, I'm just kidding. Or am I, right? Because some of you have been posting comments of how much you miss your cult leader in the comments below in the YouTube channel, and I've been posting for like 3 months, and then once you see a new video, like, he's posted again, and so, all right, well, you all flatter me. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Velocity banking, what is it? It's a debt payoff strategy where you throw all of your money into debt. And so in this example, this household makes about $6,400 a month after tax. And if you want to know kind of baseline, $100,000 a year is about $6,000 a month after tax. So this is definitely more than six figures. And I don't even know what to say anymore because, if you take a look at median income statistics, like the median income in this country is like 60 to 80 or something like that. So like 60, 70, 80 grand. So people ain't making 100, but it feels like in order to just kind of live comfortably, you need to make a six-figure income because even with the six-figure income, you have six credit cards, you have an auto loan, student loan, and a mortgage, and you're only spending about $1,500 on general personal expenses. That's your food, gas, insurance, utilities, and all that per month. Um, it seems like it's not enough, right? So that's what I think. And then you can see in this example, we have $2.99 in our checking account here after everything's paid. And what do we call this phenomenon? We call it segregation of income, meaning if your money comes in and it gets split into so many different ways, it's not as effective as if you put all of your money into one place, which is what velocity banking is about. So we assume the same income. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this. And I'm actually doing the same example as last time, but you know that Bruce Lee saying, just do the same thing 10,000 times and you'll be a master at it. And then what you're going to do is we're not going to save money, right? So throughout the entirety of this process, we're not going to save money. But why don't we save money? Because we're going to throw all of our money into debt. And then if we need the money, we take it out of a line of credit. So what we have here is something called the cash flow index. So cash flow index is just a simple formula of your debt divided by the payment. And then what you get here is like a ranking system. And the lower the number, that's the debts you want to pay off first because you get more bang for your buck. So for example, with the mortgage, it's a $220,000 debt, and if you pay off that $220,000 debt, you get $900 back in your cash flow, right? That's what the mortgage is. $220,000 debt, $900 back in your cash flow. Whereas with this $30,000 credit card debt, you pay off 30,000, you get more than the mortgage, right? So that's what this number means. And there is a correlation with the interest rate about why this cash flow index is so low and the interest rate is so high, but it doesn't take it directly into account. So now what we're going to do is we're going to assume we have access to something called a line of credit. So it's a line of credit. It's basically a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. So there's different types of lines of credit: personal, home equity. Um, since we're a homeowner, we can assume we have access to a home equity line of credit. Basically, it's like a credit card, but if you don't pay the credit card, they take your house, right? Or they have the right to foreclose on your house if you don't pay it. So, but because they have the right to foreclose or it's secured by your house, that's why the interest rate, which is like 8%, is usually cheaper than like credit card interest rates. So the fact that these credit cards are not tied to any sort of collateral is the reason why the interest rates are so high because they factor that into their business model, right? They assume that, okay, a certain number of people, like this, nice young lady, 22 years old, is not going to pay off the debt. And so, even though people declare bankruptcy all the time, the banks still make a killing because they charge so much interest. And assuming that, most people are going to pay, which they do, um, they're going to make their money, right? All right. So now let's assume we have a $100,000 home equity line of credit. Now, would the bank give you a free and clear line of credit when you have $2.99 left over? Absolutely not, because at this stage of your journey, you need money, and banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? So the way that you have to think of a bank is they want a safe bet, and people who need money at this time, at this moment, are unlikely to pay you back, right? That's just the reality of um, lending money, right? So if you ever dealt with people who needed money, they won't pay you back. They won't pay you back. Anytime you hear the words "I need money," just assume that whatever money is given, they're not going to pay you back, right? Banks don't lend money to people who need it, and because they're dealing with millions and millions of people who they don't personally know, they have to figure out an algorithm, which is your credit score, of if you need money or not, and if you're likely to pay it back or not, essentially. All right. But why do we do a free and clear line of credit? Well, it's because I'm lazy. And if you'd known this strategy before, you'd probably never be here. Right. And in fact, I actually have a paid live stream in the YouTube channel membership where someone actually had 22 debts and I think $4 left over, and that person had a personal line of credit that was already filled to the max, and then you could, if you see that took a lot of my brain power of how I paid that off in a simulation. But that would be a situation where you could use a strategy, but you still would have a free and clear line of credit because no one's going to give you a free and clear line of credit when you need money, right? Banks don't lend money to people who need it. Anyways, all right, so let's go ahead and take these lowest numbers, cash flow indexes, these 20s and 30s, and just move them into the line. All right, so 15, 27, 35, and what we're going to just do is just do a form of debt consolidation. So that's $90,000, right? And think of it as like a credit card balance transfer, but you don't have to pay that initial 3% fee. And then guess what happens when you do the transfer? Oh my goodness. These credit cards payments just all go to zero, and somehow we magically went from 299, the 299 struggle bus, to $3,057.99. Now, the next step is that you put your entire $6,400 into the line of credit as an overpayment, bring the balance down, then take out your expenses, and then rinse and repeat over and over again, right? So let's go ahead and do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the previous month's balance, previous month's interest minus the cash flow, and then what we're going to do is take the average daily balance, all right, and then multiply it by the interest rate, and then divide by 12, right? So we have $589, and then we just copy and paste the formula, and so balance goes down. We still pay the interest, but the interest is going down as we bring down the balance, and then we see that in about 33 months, right? 33 months, everything is paid off. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So 33 months, and then let me just quickly check how much. Oh yeah, we 90K. Bam, 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 bam. All right, and so now we have a loan calculator where we got to find out in 33 months what's the current balance, right? So you see right here, you put the current month, 33, and then these are all the current balances of loans, and then you see that in the auto loan is about 20,000, so we're not definitely dealing with a $50,000 car. And I wonder what the payment was, or what the income, and what the debt to income ratio is, and if we got to pay off that 50,000. But that's pretty wild, 50,000 for a car, right? And I have a friend who actually has like 6 BMWs, and I think each BMW is probably like 50 to 100,000, especially maybe like the 7 Series. All right, so cash flow index, lowest number, 9 grand, and this is what we're gonna do here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and copy and paste this values. All right, and then what we're gonna do is 9371.54. Okay, and delete that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to delete this payment, put it to 0 because we moved it into the line of credit. And then what we're going to do is 3417. All right, so now let's go ahead and update our cash flow number. So 3417.37. And then I'm going to copy and paste. And then now in 36 months, in 3 years, we paid off our car debt and all of our credit card debt. So 36 months, and that would be 90 plus 20, so that'll be 110K. So I'm going to do this. So this is going to be 0 and then 36, 36. All right, so this is the latest balance of the student loan. So ideally, if there's a huge interest rate difference, and I talk about this in the 30-year mortgage, you don't move the entire thing into a line of credit, right? So 6% to 8%, and this cash flow index number is a little bit high, but we can still do it and it shouldn't be an issue. But although you probably end up paying a little bit more interest than you have to. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this. Plus 37, 37998.46. And then I'm going to just go ahead and do this. $0 of the student loan. And now we're at $4,000 cash flow. Okay. Control V. Yeah. So our cash flow is 3972.47. Okay. And then I'm going to copy and paste this. And then we see that in 46 months, whole thing's paid off. So do that right here. So 46 months. And then that's going to be 160K. And then now the only last thing is like the 30-year mortgage or possibly the 50-year mortgage soon, right? So 46, so this is the current balance of the mortgage. And let me just look up 50-year mortgage. See how we are, where we are with that. It's proposed. So it's still not implemented. It's still not in law. 50-year mortgage. So if you're age 30, that literally means that if you decide to stay at the same home for 50 years, you'll have a paid off home at age 80. That is insane. Oh man. Hold on. Wasn't there a tweet about like FDR and Trump or something like that? Oh man. Yeah. Remember this? Great American president. Oh man. Okay, so anyways, so what we're going to do is we have two options here. We could just dump our entire savings or entire cash flow savings at this point into the mortgage as an extra payment, right? It's not an issue. Or you could just move a piece of the loan into the line of credit. We call it chunking. And one of the reasons why you might want to consider chunking, even though you're moving into higher interest rate, is so that you don't segregate your income, right? So that's kind of one reason, and I feel like that's probably the best reason to do it. Like I think a lot of people on the internet, talk about how extra payments won't work compared to whatever this is, but that's actually not true. It's just that most people can't do extra payments even though they have like an extra $2,000 left over in their savings because like what if I need the money, right? And a lot of times you could just pull money from a line of credit, but again, if you don't use your line of credit as your main operating account, that's what leads to segregation of income, right? So the reason why we got here is because the way that they make money or the banks make money is that if your income is just minimum payments through many, many, many different credit vehicles, um, they make the most interest. And a mortgage monthly payment, you could really think of as a minimum payment on it. Like that's the minimum you need to pay, right? But let's go ahead and put this all right, do something called chunking where we just move a piece of the loan into the line of credit. And I did this in the last demonstration. So I have this calculator here from Renatus, which I'm a reseller of, education. And yeah, and I make commission. And so this is all just a money making scheme for me. while educating you and possibly indoctrinating you into my cult. Anyways, all right. So original balance, current balance, blah 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 blah, and then I just put the monthly income expenses, and then you see right here 3.7 years, all paid off. So I'm just going to do this 0, 46 divided by 12 plus 3.7, and then 7.53 years we're completely debt free. Debt free, right? So isn't that pretty sweet? 7.53 years completely debt free. All right, well, that's it for today, folks. So I don't know if velocity banking would have worked for this young lady, um, because I don't know what her income is, right? You have to understand the bank's favorite customer is someone who makes a lot of money but doesn't necessarily know how to manage it, right? They don't want you to be too, it's like Goldilocks. They don't want you to be too poor because if you're too poor, how are you going to make your payments? And then they don't want you to be too smart and rich because then you're not going to make minimum payments on credit cards and loans, right? They just want that sweet spot where you make money and then you just make minimum payments, if that makes sense. Like you don't see a way out of making minimum payments on everything. The porridge is just right. Okay. All right. Well, have a great day, everybody. This is Happy Sunday. I really do wonder if it would have helped her, but if not, that's why bankruptcy exists. It exists as a valve, a release valve to help people who are struggling because it's an alternative to debtors' prisons. And then if you take a look here, 50-year Mr. 50-year mortgage also has declared not personal bankruptcy but corporate bankruptcy um, several times throughout his lifetime. Okay, well have a great day, everybody. I'll see you on the next video.